Algonquin-speaking peoples, the traditional guardians of the land where the university stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich peoples whose historical and present-day connections to this land continue to shape it.
Why is it important to emphasize awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in educational institutions?
It is so important for all education systems to educate and provide awareness about the issues and violence that missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQQIA+ people experience. This education should be provided to youth starting at a young age, where they will understand and cross over into higher education, such as secondary and post-secondary schools, which is very important because the youths of today will be the leaders in the future. A beautiful quote found from the supplemental "Their Voices Will Guide Us" is, "One of the best legacies we can leave is an education that will prevent violence and keep Indigenous women and girls safe so that they can all flourish. Together we can create a society in which all Indigenous lives are valued." We must provide teachers with accurate knowledge and the right resources so that they can educate the next generation of leaders and decision makers. Teachers need support to help students take action for social justice and positive change in society. This includes creating a world where Indigenous women and girls can thrive.
Why are relationships vital within the context of learning about MMIWG and 2SLGBTQQIA+ individuals?
Centering relationships in the context of ending violence against missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQQIA+ people recognizes how our interactions with one another in the spaces we find ourselves can impact our beliefs, actions, and values. Acknowledging the importance of relationships not only between educators and students, but also with local Indigenous communities helps ensure safe and ethical learning is done with the leadership and input of Indigenous peoples. The report states, part of this work means approaching Indigenous people and communities with a true desire to facilitate or help in terms that are self-determined and of their own creation. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is primarily the result of historic systemic injustices that are still alive and felt in society today. Colonial institutions such as education and social welfare systems continuously maintain the suppression of Indigenous people, creating unsafe environments that can result in violence against Indigenous women and girls. For educators, it is essential to recognize how they teach and exist in colonial systems that hold a continuous history of forced assimilation and harm. Creating healthy relationships between staff, students, and local communities ensures education systems can become a space of trust, learning, and healing. Thus, we call upon all educators to foster and maintain healthy relationships with Indigenous communities, students, and fellow staff members, which promotes ethical and meaningful learning regarding missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Why is the implementation of Their Voices Will Guide Us essential when decolonizing the classroom?
Integrating Their Voices Will Guide Us into curriculums and classrooms is crucial when addressing and fulfilling Call to Action 11.1, as it is an Indigenous-led educational guide that brings awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls crisis and encourages teachers and students to reflect on the disproportionate levels of violence they endure. However, this resource does not only depict Indigenous women and girls as victims, but places great importance on their strength and agency, as well as roles and participations in their families, communities, and nations. Introducing young people to the importance of ethically learning about and engaging with Indigenous women is foundational knowledge within the context of decolonization and reconciliation. It enables both teachers and students to examine how colonialism, both historical and contemporary, shapes the perceptions and lived experiences of Indigenous women and girls. Utilizing Their Voices Will Guide Us in the classroom is how teachers can create an ethical learning environment where students can engage with Indigenous ways of knowing and reflect on legislation, policies, and societal attitudes that perpetuate racism, sexism, and other forms of violence against missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Thus, we call upon educators to encourage social change through the incorporation of Indigenous-led resources designed to help decolonize the education system from the classroom to the school board and beyond.
How can the integration of Indigenous knowledge and community-led solutions within the education system support the healing and empowerment of Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQQIA+ people?
The report emphasizes the importance of two-eyed seeing, integrating both Indigenous and Western knowledge systems. This approach empowers students to challenge systemic violence and promotes leadership among Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQQIA+ people, which ultimately strengthens their communities through active engagement and advocacy. Integrating Indigenous knowledge and community-led solutions into the education system plays a vital role in healing and empowering Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQQIA+ people, particularly in addressing historical trauma and intergenerational violence. The final report states that violence against Indigenous women and girls is rooted in colonialism, and decolonizing education is essential for healing. By incorporating Indigenous perspectives, students can reconnect with their cultural identity, which fosters resilience and a sense of belonging and is crucial for healing.